Ma'am. You are not allowed to fly. The gate agent's words cut through the busy airport like a knife. She stood still. She said nothing. Around her, people stared. Phones came out. A mother pulled her child away. Nobody knew who she really was. But the F-22 pilots 30,000 feet above, they were about to find out. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The airport was loud and busy that Tuesday morning. Hundreds of people moved through the wide halls of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, pulling suitcases, checking phones, and rushing to their gates. Nobody paid attention to the woman standing quietly in line at gate C-14. Her name was Captain Dana Reeves. She was 39 years old, tall and lean, with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. She wore simple blue jeans and a dark green jacket. There was nothing about her that made people look twice. She looked like any normal person trying to catch a flight. But Dana Reeves was not normal. Not even close. She had spent 16 years flying fighter jets for the United States Air Force. She had flown over deserts, mountains, and oceans in the dark of night when no one else would go. She had brought broken aircraft home when every warning light was on and every alarm was screaming. She had saved her squadron not once, not twice, but 7 times in places that most people had never heard of. Her call sign was Ghost. Because once Ghost was in the sky, the enemy never saw her coming. And they never saw her leave. But that was before. Before the politics. Before the punishment. Before they took everything from her. Now she was just a woman in line at gate C-14, hoping to fly home to Houston to see her sick father. She reached the front of the line and handed her boarding pass to the gate agent, a young man in a navy blue uniform. He scanned it. The machine beeped. He frowned and scanned it again. The machine beeped again, 3 short, sharp beeps that meant something was wrong. The agent typed quickly on his keyboard. His face changed. The polite airport smile disappeared. "Ma'am," he said, loudly enough for the people behind Dana to hear. "Can I see your ID, please?" Dana pulled out her driver's license and placed it on the counter without saying a word. She already knew what was happening. She had been through this before. The agent looked at the screen, then looked at her, then looked at the screen again. "Ms. Reeves," he said, his voice now stiff and official, "you are flagged in our federal aviation system. You are not permitted to fly on any commercial aircraft. I need to call my supervisor and airport security immediately." The words fell like stones. Every person nearby heard them. A woman with a child stepped back. A businessman in a gray suit whispered to the man next to him. Someone raised a phone to record the whole thing. Dana kept her face still. She had learned to do that. She had learned to stand straight and say nothing while people made up their minds about who she was, even when every single thing they were thinking was completely wrong. The supervisor arrived in less than 2 minutes. Her name tag said Carol Webb. She was in her 50s, with reading glasses hanging around her neck and the tired eyes of someone who had seen too many difficult passengers over the years. "Ms. Reeves," Carol said carefully, "our system shows a federal aviation restriction on your name. You cannot board this flight. I'm going to need you to step aside so we can speak privately." 2 airport security officers appeared from the side. They stood close to Dana, not touching her, but close enough to make it very clear she was not free to just walk away. The passengers in line stared. Some filmed. Some whispered. A teenager pointed and said something to his friend that made them both laugh. Dana followed Carol to a small area beside the gate counter. She reached into her bag and pulled out a brown folder. Inside was a set of papers, official documents, approval letters, a medical certificate about her father's condition, and a special one-time travel exemption that her lawyer had spent 4 weeks getting approved through government channels most people did not even know existed. "I have an exemption," Dana said quietly. It was approved 10 days ago. Everything is in order. Carol took the folder and read through it carefully. She made 2 phone calls. She typed things into a tablet. She checked reference numbers and called a verification line. All of this took 15 minutes. 15 long minutes while Dana stood there and the security officers watched her and the passengers in line behind her stared at the back of her head and whispered their theories about what terrible thing this woman must have done to get banned from flying. Finally, Carol handed the folder back. Your exemption is valid, she admitted. You are approved for this one flight only. But there are conditions. You will board last. You will sit in the last row. A flight attendant will monitor you for the entire flight. Any unusual behavior and the captain will be notified immediately. Do you understand? Yes, Dana said. Just that one word. She stood at the gate for the next 30 minutes and watched every other passenger board the plane. Families. Couples. Business people. Children running down the jet bridge. One by one they all went in, some of them glancing back at her with curiosity or suspicion, none of them knowing anything real about her at all. When the gate was finally empty, Carol nodded at her. Dana picked up her small bag and walked down the jet bridge alone, under the eyes of a security officer who followed 3 steps behind her, as if she might try to run. She did not run. She had nowhere to run. And she had learned a long time ago that running away from injustice never worked. You had to stand still and wait for the truth to catch up on its own. She found her seat, 37F, the very last row of the Boeing 737, right next to the lavatory doors. She sat down, buckled her belt, and looked out the small window at the ground crew below, doing their jobs quickly and efficiently in the early morning sun. The flight attendant assigned to watch her, a young woman named Amy whose name tag showed a small Texas flag pinned beside it, stood at the end of the aisle with her arms crossed, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes alert. Dana looked out the window and thought about her father. She thought about the hospital room. About the phone call 3 nights ago when he had sounded so tired and so small. She thought about how she needed to get to Houston, and she was going to get to Houston, no matter what anybody thought about her or what flag was next to her name in some government database. The plane pushed back. It taxied to the runway. And 20 minutes later, Flight 1147 to Houston lifted smoothly into the clear blue Texas sky. What the passengers on Flight 1147 did not know, what nobody except a small group of classified government officials knew, was why Dana Reeves was really on that restriction list. 18 months earlier, Dana had been leading a 4-aircraft strike mission over a mountainous region near the border of 2 countries that were technically at peace but practically at war. Her team's mission was simple on paper: fly in, destroy a specific target, fly out. 40 minutes total. Clean and fast. But missions are never simple once you are actually inside them. 30 minutes into the mission, Dana's radar picked up something wrong. A trap. 8 enemy aircraft, hidden in the valleys below, waiting for her squadron to reach the target zone before rising up and cutting off their escape route. It was a perfect ambush. The kind that leaves no survivors. Her commanding officer, watching through a satellite feed from a base 2,000 miles away, ordered her to continue the mission on the original plan. He could not see what she was seeing. He was looking at a map. She was looking at the sky. Dana did not follow the order. Instead, she made a decision in 4 seconds that most pilots would have needed 4 hours to think about. She split her squadron, sent 2 aircraft high and 2 aircraft low, created a false signal pattern that made the enemy think the entire flight was retreating, and then hit them from an angle they had not prepared for. The ambush became a trap of her own making. All 4 of her pilots came home that night. Every single one of them alive. The mission target was also destroyed. Perfect result. 0 losses. But Dana had disobeyed a direct order from a superior officer. And that superior officer was a man who did not like being wrong. He did not like being shown up by someone who had seen something he had missed from his comfortable chair 2,000 miles away. He did not like that the pilots in Dana's squadron talked about her the way they did, with a respect that was usually only given to legends. The investigation that followed was political, not military. Dana was accused of reckless flying, insubordination, and endangering the mission. The fact that she had saved 4 lives and completed the objective anyway did not matter to the people writing the reports. What mattered was that she had made someone powerful look small. They could not court-martial her without declassifying the entire mission, which they refused to do. So instead they forced her into early retirement. They stripped her rank quietly. And they flagged her name in every aviation database in the country, the official reason listed as safety concerns and regulatory violations. Vague enough to destroy her. Clear enough to keep her grounded. Dana Reeves, call sign Ghost, one of the finest fighter pilots the United States Air Force had ever trained, was banned from the sky she had protected for 16 years. She had saved 4 lives and completed the mission. And they punished her for it. Because the truth is sometimes the most dangerous thing of all. Flight 1147 had been in the air for 35 minutes when Dana felt it. It was not a sound. It was not a movement. It was a feeling, a very slight change in the way the aircraft was breathing, the way its engines hummed, a tiny hesitation in the rhythm that most people would never notice in 1,000 flights. Dana noticed it in 3 seconds. She sat up straight and looked around the cabin. The flight attendants were moving with quick, careful steps toward the front of the plane. Their faces were controlled but their eyes were not. Something was wrong up front. Then the speaker crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Torres. We have a medical emergency in the cockpit. My first officer has lost consciousness. I am not feeling well myself. We are declaring an emergency. Please remain calm and stay in your seats. Flight attendants, please come to the cockpit immediately." The cabin exploded in noise. People gasped. A child started crying. A man near the front jumped up from his seat. Amy, the flight attendant who had been watching Dana, rushed past her toward the front of the plane, her training taking over completely. Dana unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. She walked calmly and quickly to the front of the cabin where Amy and the lead flight attendant, a woman named Rosa, were standing outside the cockpit door, both of them speaking rapidly into their handsets and looking terrified in the way that only people who know exactly how serious a situation is can look terrified. "I can help," Dana said simply. Rosa looked at her. "You need to return to your seat, ma'am." "I am a pilot," Dana said. "Fighter pilot. United States Air Force. 16 years. I have flown aircraft far more complex than this one in conditions that would make this look like a calm afternoon. You need to let me into that cockpit right now." Rosa stared at her for a moment. Then she said what Dana had expected her to say. "You are the flagged passenger. You are on a restriction list. I cannot open that door for you." "Then call air traffic control," Dana said, her voice staying calm and low. "Tell them you have a passenger named Dana Reeves offering assistance. My call sign is Ghost. Ask them to check military aviation records. They will know who I am." Rosa hesitated for exactly 2 seconds. Then she grabbed her handset and made the call. High above the clouds over central Texas, 2 F-22 Raptor fighter jets were already on their way. The moment any commercial aircraft in American airspace declares an emergency, the military responds. It is automatic. Within minutes of Captain Torres's call, the F-22s had been scrambled from their base and were climbing toward Flight 1147 at speeds that would have seemed impossible to most people. Major Cole Hartman led the two-ship formation. He had 12 years in the F-22, for combat deployments, and the quiet, unhurried confidence of a man who had been in difficult situations so many times that difficult had become his normal. His wingman, Lieutenant Priya Nair, flew tight formation on his right, precise, focused, and fast. Air traffic control connected Hartman directly to the emergency channel for Flight 1147. Viper Flight, this is Dallas Center, the controller said. Flight 1147 has declared a medical emergency. Both pilots may be incapacitated. We have a passenger aboard who claims to be a military aviator and is offering to assist. Passenger name is Dana Reeves. Call sign listed as Ghost. Requesting your assessment. There was silence on the radio for 4 full seconds. In the cockpit of his F-22, Major Hartman did not move. He sat completely still with his hand on the throttle and his eyes straight ahead and the name echoing inside his helmet like a bell that had just been struck. Ghost. He had heard that name for the first time when he was a young lieutenant, sitting in a briefing room listening to an instructor talk about tactical decision-making under pressure. The instructor had put a mission diagram on the screen, for aircraft, a mountain valley, an 8-aircraft ambush, and a 4-second decision that had saved everyone. The instructor had not named the pilot. But the other pilots in that room had known. Stories like that traveled fast in fighter squadrons. They always did. He had heard the name again 2 years later when a senior pilot, 20 years in the Air Force, had said quietly over dinner that the best tactical mind he had ever seen in a cockpit belonged to a woman they had pushed out of the service for being better than the people above her. He had said her call sign was Ghost. He had said it the way you say the name of someone who deserved far better than they got. And now Ghost was on a commercial airliner with unconscious pilots and 112 passengers and she was offering to help. Hartman pressed the transmit button. Dallas Center, this is Viper 1, he said. His voice was steady and clear and carried something in it that air traffic controllers did not often hear from fighter pilots, a deep, immediate respect. Ghost Reeves is cleared for full cockpit access and complete flight authority. Do not hesitate. Do not delay. Open that door. She is not just qualified, she is the most capable emergency pilot that aircraft is ever going to have. Every pilot in this Air Force knows that name. Give her whatever she needs. The radio transmission was broadcast on multiple channels. Rosa, standing outside the cockpit door with her handset pressed to her ear, heard every word. She heard the certainty in that voice. She heard the way the fighter pilot said that name, not like information, but like recognition. Like finally seeing something that had been missing. Rosa lowered her handset slowly. She looked at Dana. Her expression had completely changed. You're Ghost, she whispered. Dana said nothing. She did not nod or smile or explain herself. She just looked at the cockpit door. Rosa entered the security code and pushed it open. The cockpit was small and bright and smelled of stale coffee. Captain Torres sat slumped in the left seat, fighting to stay awake, his face pale and damp with sweat. First Officer Kim lay completely still in the right seat, unconscious but breathing. The autopilot was engaged and the aircraft was flying level, but the altitude was drifting slightly and the heading was 2 degrees off. Dana moved in fast. She checked both pilots in 10 seconds, Torres barely conscious, Kim stable. She turned to Rosa. Get oxygen on both of them right now. Find out if anyone on board has medical training. This is hypoxia, the pressurization system has a fault. They've been breathing low oxygen air for the past 20 minutes. She slid into the right seat, the first officer's seat, and her hands found the controls without hesitation. Not the slow, careful touch of someone learning something new. The immediate, natural grip of someone coming home. Her eyes moved across the instrument panel the way a reader moves across a page, fast, fluid, and absorbing everything at once. Altitude. Airspeed. Heading. Fuel. Engine readings. Pressurization system status. She found the fault in 11 seconds and switched the pressurization to manual emergency override. She keyed the radio. Dallas Center, this is Flight 1147. Dana Reeves has assumed control of the aircraft. Both original pilots are incapacitated from hypoxia due to a pressurization malfunction. Pressurization is now on emergency override. I am a qualified multi-engine pilot with extensive flight hours. Requesting immediate vectors for return to Dallas-Fort Worth and emergency services on standby. The controller's voice came back instantly. Flight 1147, vectors to Dallas-Fort Worth, turn left heading 270, descend to flight level 240. Emergency services are standing by. You are cleared priority. Copy that. Left to 270, descending to flight level 240. Dana banked the 737 into a smooth, gentle left turn. The kind of turn that passengers feel is barely more than a slight lean. She had learned long ago that the best flying is the kind that people do not notice. Smooth is fast. Calm is efficient. Panic is the enemy of everyone in the air. Then Hartman's voice came back on the radio, not through the official channel, but through the emergency frequency that the cockpit was also monitoring. Flight 1147, this is Viper 1. We have you visual on your left wing. You are not alone up here, Ghost. We will be with you all the way down. Take your time. You have this. Dana looked to her left through the cockpit window. There, 50 meters off the wing, was the F-22, sleek and gray and impossibly beautiful, flying formation with a commercial airliner as naturally as if it had always belonged there. Behind it, slightly further out, was the second Raptor. For a moment, just a single breath, Dana felt something she had not felt in 18 months. Not pride exactly. Something quieter than that. Something closer to peace. She was in the sky again. And the sky had not forgotten her. Copy that, Viper 1, she said. Good to have company. Behind her in the cabin, word was spreading. Passengers were leaning across each other to look out the windows at the fighter jet flying alongside them. Amy was moving through the rows, speaking quietly to keep people calm, telling them that a qualified pilot had taken control, that they were returning to Dallas, that everything was going to be fine. A retired doctor named Warren, 2 rows from the back, had come forward with his medical bag and was helping Rosa with Captain Torres, who was slowly coming around on oxygen. First Officer Kim was still unconscious, but her breathing had grown stronger in the last 10 minutes as the fresh pressurized air reached her. Dana flew the aircraft with one hand and managed the radio with the other, coordinating the descent, talking to ground operations at Dallas-Fort Worth, running through the landing checklist with the controlled efficiency of someone who had done this kind of thing, or something much harder, hundreds of times before. The F-22 stayed with her the whole way down. One on each side as the aircraft entered the approach corridor, then peeling off in formation as Flight 1147 dropped below the cloud layer and the long gray runways of Dallas-Fort Worth appeared ahead through the windscreen, surrounded by a line of flashing emergency vehicles already in position. Hartman's final transmission came just as Dana configured the aircraft for landing. Ghost, this is Viper 1. Beautiful flying. Bringing it home clean, just like always. It has been an honor. Dana did not answer. She was busy with the runway. She reduced power. Adjusted the glide path. Her hands and feet moved together on the controls the way a musician's hands move on an instrument, not thinking about each movement, just feeling the whole thing as one connected act. The runway came up beneath them. The main wheels touched the concrete with a sound like a quiet sigh. Then the nose wheel came down, and Dana deployed the brakes, and Flight 1147 rolled to a smooth stop at the end of runway 17L, surrounded on all sides by fire trucks and ambulances and police vehicles with their lights turning in the early morning sun. For a moment, the cabin was completely silent. Then it exploded. People were crying. People were clapping. A man near the middle of the plane was standing up and shouting something that nobody could quite hear over all the other noise. The retired doctor was shaking his head slowly with a small smile. Amy was leaning against the galley wall with both hands over her face. Dana completed the shutdown checklist. She turned off the autopilot. She set the parking brake. She did everything in the correct order, the way she had been trained, the way she had always done it, because doing things correctly was not just habit, it was respect for the aircraft and for every person inside it. Then she sat back in the seat and looked at the sky through the windscreen for a long moment. Blue and wide and endless and real. Major Hartman landed his F-22 at a nearby military airfield and drove to Dallas-Fort Worth in a government vehicle, still wearing his flight suit. Lieutenant Nair came with him. They walked through the terminal with the kind of purpose that makes people step out of the way without being asked. They found Dana in a small room near the gate, sitting on a plastic chair while a paramedic checked her blood pressure even though she kept insisting she was perfectly fine. Captain Torres was on a stretcher nearby, now fully conscious and confused. First Officer Kim had been taken to the hospital by ambulance. Hartman stopped in the doorway. He looked at Dana for a moment. Then he came to attention and gave her a full military salute, sharp, formal, and completely genuine. "Captain Reeves," he said. "Major Cole Hartman, 33rd Fighter Wing. It was an honor to share airspace with you today." Dana stood up. The paramedic stepped back. "You didn't have to come," she said. "Yes, I did," he said simply. He pulled out his phone and made a call that was answered in 2 rings. "Sir, this is Hartman. Ghost Reeves just saved 112 civilians on a commercial aircraft using skills that prove clearly she should never have been grounded. I am formally requesting an immediate review of her case. The country cannot afford to keep this pilot on the ground. Today proved that whatever political decision got her banned was wrong. Full stop." He listened for a moment, then lowered the phone. "That was General Foster," Hartman said quietly. "He said he already knows. He said he has been waiting for an opportunity that was big enough to force a review. He said this is that opportunity." Outside the room, things were already moving fast. Passengers from Flight 1147 had posted videos to social media the moment the plane stopped rolling. The hashtag was already trending. News vans were pulling into the airport parking lot. A reporter was doing a live broadcast from the terminal, pointing at the gate where it had all started just a few hours ago. Rosa, the lead flight attendant, found Dana in the corridor and stopped in front of her. Her eyes were red from crying but her voice was steady. "I am sorry," Rosa said. "I almost didn't let you help. I saw the flag on your boarding pass and I thought," she stopped. She shook her head. "I thought the system was right. I should have trusted you sooner." "You did your job," Dana said. "You followed the rules you were given. The rules were the problem, not you." Rosa nodded slowly. "What you did up there," she said. "The way you just walked in and took control like you had been flying that aircraft for years. Where does that come from?" Dana thought about it for a moment. 16 years of never giving up," she said. 2 weeks later, the review was completed. The general himself called Dana at home on a Wednesday morning. He spoke for 8 minutes. He told her that the original investigation had been found to be politically motivated and factually incorrect. He told her that her restriction had been lifted, effective immediately, with a full restoration of her rating and qualifications. He told her that she was being offered reinstatement at the rank of lieutenant colonel, or full clearance for any civilian aviation position she chose to pursue. He also told her that he was sorry. That it had taken too long. That the Air Force had failed her and knew it. Dana listened to all of it without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "I want to fly again," she said. "That's all I ever wanted." "Then fly," the general said. "The sky is yours." 3 months later, on a clear morning in April, Dana Reeves walked across the tarmac of Lackland Air Force Base toward an F-22 Raptor that had been assigned to her for a requalification evaluation flight. She was wearing a flight suit for the first time in 18 months. It felt like putting on something she had never actually taken off, like the suit had simply been waiting for her, folded and patient, knowing she would be back. A group of young pilots was gathered near the hangar watching her. Some of them had been students when the story of Ghost broke nationally. Some of them had grown up reading about missions they were not old enough to have been part of. All of them had seen the video from Flight 1147, Dana walking into that cockpit, her movements calm and certain, while two F-22s held formation off her wing and Major Hartman's voice said her call sign with that weight that told everyone listening exactly who she was. One of the young pilots, a woman barely 25 years old with bright, serious eyes, stepped forward as Dana passed. "Captain Reeves," she said. "I applied to the fighter program because of you. Because of what you did. Because of the way they tried to stop you and couldn't." Dana looked at her for a moment. "What's your name?" "Lieutenant Torres, ma'am." "Maya Torres." "Keep flying, Lieutenant Torres," Dana said. "Whatever they tell you about limits, ignore it. The sky does not have limits. Only people do." She continued across the tarmac to where the F-22 sat waiting, its canopy open and its engines cold and still. She climbed the ladder and lowered herself into the seat. She strapped in, connected her helmet, ran through the startup checklist with smooth, practiced hands, and brought the engines alive one by one until the whole aircraft was humming with restrained power beneath her. The tower gave her clearance. She taxied to the runway. She pushed the throttle forward. The F-22 accelerated down the runway and lifted into the sky in under 10 seconds, clean and fast and almost silent, rising into the blue like something that had been held underwater and finally released. Dana did not look back at the ground. She had spent 18 months down there, grounded by people who feared what she could do. She had stood at airport counters while strangers judged her. She had sat in the back of planes and watched the sky from small windows. She had waited, and been patient, and held herself together when it would have been easier to fall apart. And she had been right. The truth had caught up. The sky had called her back. And when the F-22 had spoken her name with that weight and that respect, the whole world had finally heard what the people who knew her had always known. Ghost was never gone. She was just waiting for the clouds to clear.